Maddie Wiseman.
My name is Brett Scott.
We are doing an interview to see how life was back in World War II on how Pearl Wormhouse. Pearl, where did you live during World War II?
I lived in New York City.
And how old were you during World War II?
I was 30 in 40.
Were you married?
No, not yet.
Had any of your family enlisted in the war?
Oh, no, because I was an only child and my father was too old, so.
Did you have a job?
Oh yes, I was in New York to study art and voice, and I had to have a job to pay for my rent and food and lessons.
During World War II time period, did your daily responsibilities change at all during your job?
No,
What kind of lessons?
chiefly voice lessons. I studied with a very famous international teacher who accepted me. A lot of people wanted to study with her. She was from Europe, Russia, but was teaching in New York. And she'd go back to Europe and teach people there too. And she taught first-class singers, you know. I mean, people who were professional, studied with her. And so, boy, I was very lucky to be taken by her.
Now, did she ever mention something, like, because she was from Europe, did she ever mention her thoughts about the war?
No, we didn't talk about outside things. We only talked about singing.
Where did you go to school?
High school, Pella High School, and Central College. And then I got my master's at Columbia. And then all of this private study, I studied not only voice, but I studied ceramics and sculpture. I had a wonderful sculpture teacher.
What was the everyday life like?
It was just city life. People having jobs and going out to do special things, and then all of the theater stuff was going on, and the Metropolitan Opera, which I would go to.
Was there any commotion about people talking about the war?
More or less as you would expect, yes.
Where did you work?
I worked in the Greater New York Federation of Churches office. All of the Protestant churches in New York had this central office in Manhattan. And my boss was in charge of all the weekday religious education in the Protestant churches of New York City. And I was their secretary, and I had to see that that happened.
Did you ever keep a journal and write about what had taken place in that time?
I have, but I've given it away.
What was it like after the war?
Relief.
Was it
Everyone
easier?
felt relieved, yes.
The big New York parade, when all the veterans came back, were you in New York during that time?
No, at least I never saw one of those parades. I know they continue to have them.
Did you know anyone personally who fought in the war?
I didn't have anybody emotionally attached to me involved, you see. My father was too old, and I had no brothers, and I wasn't married yet. And
Wasn't your friend Art Wormhout at that time? Wasn't he a translator in the war?
He was in the Army,
Mm-hmm.
yes, but he got out just fine, so
Yeah.
we got together when he got back.
And when did you guys get married?
1948.
Were you ever concerned about another attack?
You're always watching the foreign news if you've been involved in any way. And I watch it now. I'm concerned all the time that these wars we are having, and that will be dragged in further.
Going back to the war, how much information were you able to get? Were the newspapers talked a lot about the war and about those concentration
No,
camps?
you couldn't get very much information. And of course I couldn't afford to buy newspapers. There wasn't that kind of news on the radio. No, they didn't have the information. No, we never knew very much of what was really going on.
Did your parents live in New York?
My mother died when I was 15. So my father had a baby chick hatchery in Pella, and he remarried after some time, so they were in Pella.
What were some of the changes and struggles that you had?
No, I didn't. I was just studying away, boy, and working away to pay for the studies. I had nothing behind me, you know. I mean, I had to make it all myself. My dad would help with what he could, but he couldn't pay for all those studies and stuff.
Going back to knowing Art, what were your feelings like of, did you know him while he was in the war?
Oh, we were Pelicans together,
Mm-hmm.
but his sister was my classmate, and she was 2 years older than he was. So, I was 2 years older than he was. So, you know, I was going ahead. I only thought of him as my good friend's brother, young brother. Well, he followed me to New York, and after a while he proposed. I mean, we'd get together, you know, because we were Pelicans, and but it worked out beautifully.
That's good.
In New York City, what was different? Did anything change? Like, did people collect scrap? Like, ask you for scrap metal and?
No, not, because it was all happening in Europe, you see, and just some of our boys were gone over there, and otherwise not a great deal of change in the city life.
Were a lot more women working during that time?
Yes, I guess they were, but believe me, it has still taken a long time for women to get the chances that men got much more easily.
Do you remember what your salary was for being a secretary at that church?
$25 a month, and my voice lessons were $20 a lesson or something. I've written a couple of books. This is one of them. That's one of the books. The only one I don't have any cards for. I wrote them in Europe and England and Japan and Australia. I've got loads of letters there thanking me for doing these books from voice teachers all over. So I'm proud of that.
Albert Einstein's daughter?
Oh yeah, Margot. Sure. She was in my class in Columbia. Einstein's daughter. And she was a charming person. We'd see each other in class and talk a little bit. I had a friend in Princeton that I'd go out weekends occasionally to see her. She was my friend in New York. She was my friend in Chicago, where I taught. After college, I was director of girls' work in the Settlement House on the west side of Chicago. She taught piano at the Settlement House, and so we got to be real good friends. And so I went to New York because she went to New York. You know, I wanted to see some more of her, and that worked out real good. And then she married and moved to Princeton. So then I'd go out to see her.
Thank you very much.
All right.
Thank you. We have done our interview on Pearl Wormhout. She is one of my family friends. Some of the pros, she had talked a lot about her lifestyle. Questions were very interesting. For her age, she had remembered a lot. We had done well on follow-ups. And some interesting facts were Albert Einstein's daughter, Margot, had been in Pearl's class, and they were friends. And Pearl had published 2 books that had gone all over the world. And she had voice lessons from a world-famous singing coach.
Some of the cons that we had about the interview, everyone was really poor at the time. Another con was she was really hard to understand, which is kind of understandable because she was 96, but still. In the beginning I thought we rushed her with questions and kind of sped up, or maybe she forgot what she was going to say. She rambled on a lot, and she talked way more about her lifestyle than the war,
But all in all, I thought it was pretty good.